Hello everyone and happy Revenge of the 6th. Sorry I didn't say yesterday, but Revenge of the 6th just sounds better than Revenge of the 5th and I don't want to say the same thing twice. So, for the duration of this episode, I want you all to be aware that I know that Gorillaz are just a virtual band and that the project itself is the brainchild of Damon Albarn and Jamie Hewlett. With that in mind, I'm going to be talking about the fictional members like they're real since it gives me a lot more to talk about. So, yes, Gorillaz. They've been around since 1998 and have had more or less kept the same four members with Stuart 2D parts on lead vocals and keyboards, as well as some guitar and melodic work, bassist and backing vocalist Murdoch Nichols, drummer Russell Hobbs, and lead guitarist and backing vocalist Noodle, who doesn't seem to have a real name. Their genre can be best described as their own, mixing alternative hip-hop, Britpop, trip-hop, alternative rock, electronica, EDM, R&B, and the bath. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Anyway, this is Backtracking, and this time, it's Gorillaz, with a Z. As is often the case, we start with their self-titled debut. Gorillaz by Gorillaz was released in 2001 through Parlophone and Virgin Records, and it's pretty much instantly... It's the album that kind of put them on the map right off the bat. It's a really good start. Like most people who are now fans of them, I'm sure that your first Gorillaz song was also Clint Eastwood, otherwise known as Sunshine in a Bag. There was just something about the song that made it stick out. Maybe it was the animation, the song being surprisingly catchy, the sound, the rapping of guest star Del the Funky Homo Sapien, or maybe it's because of all of these and more. Or maybe it's the fact that they fought a bunch of zombie gorillas. Yeah, the video for Clint Eastwood was both awesome and really, really weird, but it was a great show of the band's signature sound, or rather what they sound like most of the time. Now, I really hate this term, but the Gorillaz are pretty much genreless. Sure, they do have genres that they slap together and make music out of, as is the case with pretty much every band ever, and they put a unique spin on things, also like pretty much every band ever. But there's just something about Gorillaz that makes them stand out from all of that. See, I myself only got back into Gorillaz around the tail end of 2011/early 2012, about the time when The Fall had come out. The band are one of those rare cases where I really should appreciate them more. I mean, granted, they've returned now, but you have to remember it was 6 years between The Fall and Humans, but we're not here to talk about those until later, so let's just focus on their debut for now. I almost forgot to mention their production crew, so here it is. Tom Gerling, Jason Cox, Dan the Automator, and Gorillaz themselves. Like I said before in this series, it's always cool when the band themselves has a say in stuff, so there you go, really. Also, the album is part of the first phase of Gorillaz titled Celebrity Takedown. It's strange to think about the weird adventures that they've been through since then, because during phase 1, things were fairly normal. They discovered Kong Studios, got together and made some music just for the fun of it. And the album itself is really fun. Depending on the track, it can sometimes be difficult to follow what's happening, but it works more often than not. And even though the band would later dabble with more guest musicians, they only have two on their debut. Del and Clint Eastwood and Rock the House, and Ibrahim Ferrer, I think I'm saying that correctly, on Latin Simone. Bear in mind that I only listen to the bare bones versions of albums if I can, so no bonus tracks or deluxe things or anything like that. As a result, I won't be going over any guest stars that appeared on those songs. With that in mind, let's move on. 2D is just a brilliant vocalist with really coherent, slightly warbled range that just sounds great, and pretty good political lyrics too. Murdoch kills it on bass as always, adding some great lines and riffs. Noah puts in a good performance on guitar and as a vocalist on occasion, singing greatly along with 2D, and Russell's drumming is nice and laid back, a great cymbal work and awesome beats. Standout songs include 192000, 5-4, Clint Eastwood, The Great Closer in M1A1, and my favourite in Starshine, The World Says Hello. Gorillaz make one hell of an entrance with their eponymous debut, and considering that it landed them in the Guinness Book of Records, that's a pretty cool accolade. I can't recommend this one without much issue, so can the Guinness World Records apparently. Next up is their sequel, Demon Days. Released in 2005, the record labels are the same and the production crew is only slightly different. Damon Albarn and Jason Cox are still there, but this time we're joined by Danger Mouse, no, not that one, and James Dring. Now, I will get this out of the way. I'm fully aware that Demon Days is held as the band's best album, but one thing that I forgot to mention is that in terms of albums I've listened to, I'm going in pretty much completely blind for this episode, meaning that as of writing this, I still have 3 more to listen to after Demon Days before I give my full verdict at the end. With that in mind, let's just move on. The production is just something fantastic. Honestly, it's done really, really well. It always keeps you guessing with what it's going to do next. Speaking of keeping you guessing, there are a load of guest stars in this one, so let's get those out of the way. Nene Cherry appears on Kids with Guns. Booty Brown and the Children's Choir appear on Dirty Harry. Hip Hop Trio De La Soul appear on Feel Good Inc. Like Turner appears on Every Planet We Reach Is Dead. Metal Face Doom, who was awesome, appears on November Has Come. Bruce Minerva and Martina Topley Bird appear on All Alone. Sean Reid and Rosie Wilson appear on Dare. Dennis Hopper narrates the entirety of the track Fire Coming Out of Monkey's Head. And finally, the London Community Gospel Choir appear on the last two tracks in the album, Don't Get Lost in Heaven and the closing title track, Demon Days. That is a lot of guest stars. The album sound adds some more elements of funk and has even more rapping, and there's even some more orchestral. I don't know why I say it like that. I spelled orchestral. Orchestral instruments including cello, double bass, violas, and violins. For those wondering, there is a difference between those last two. Violas are smaller than violins. That's pretty much the only difference between them. One thing that I quite like is the balance of the guest stars' appearances. Despite the abundance of them, they never fully hog the spotlight or take over any of the songs that they're on, and neither do the Gorillaz themselves. It's shared and equally enjoyed between everyone, and the album's multitude of genres and styles complements all of the guests involved. They kind of help along with telling the story a little bit as well, but that part definitely goes to the band themselves, in my opinion. See, for Demon Days, they recorded it on a flying island named El Mañana, which is Spanish for the tomorrow. Shame that said island is burned to hell during the video for the song El Mañana. I don't fully know why they left Conk Studios, but let's just assume that they needed a new recording space on account of the haunted spirits and zombie gorillas and whatnot. Flying Island with a cool name is definitely a step up from Zombie Gorilla Burial Ground, and it's a really great way to kick off Phase 2, Slowboat to Hades. The members all perform well. 2D adds a new deepness to his voice and he gives more weight to his lyrics, going over subjects like love, politics, and freedom. Murdoch's basslines are fucking phenomenal here, adding Norse and groove to everything. Newell gets more time to shine as a guitarist, playing some good riffs and scales of her own, and Russell's drumming continues to heavier with improved crash and ride work. Just brilliant stuff. Standout songs include Feel Good Inc., Kids with Guns, All Alone, the great title track Closer, and my favourite, In Every Planet We Reach Is Dead. Gorillaz might suffer from slightly repetitive lyrics from time to time, but that's such a small nitpick on a huge impacted genre-crossing album that just gets stuck in your head in terms of Demon Days. I can definitely recommend this one a lot. It's really, 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 really good. Really good. Really good. Really good. We now carry on with the album that kind of got me more interested in the band, Plastic Beach. Released in 2010, the labels are the same, but this time the only producers are Gorillaz themselves. And once again, there's done the magic fuck ton of guest stars, so let's go over them. Again, like we did last time. Snoop Dogg appears in Welcome to the World of Plastic Beach. Bashi and Kano, not the Mortal Kombat character, appear on White Flag. Mos Def and Bobby Womack appear on Stylo, and later they appear on the tracks Sweepstakes and Cloud of Unknown, respectively. De La Soul and Gruff Reese appear on Superfast Jellyfish. Lil Dragon appears on Empire Ant Center Binge. Marquis Smith appears on Glitter Freeze, and finally Lou Reed appears on Some Kind of Nature. So many people, I swear to God. Anyway, the album is also the band's longest at 56:46, beating their self-titled debut by 4 seconds in length. 4. In that huge time, there's actually quite a lot to enjoy. As I said, Plastic Beach is the album that got my attention back to the band. I never listened to it before writing for this episode, but it was the first one where I told myself that I might start liking them again, and considering the album sound and production, that actually says quite a lot. Oh, and I forgot to mention that there's a slight little lineup change. Russell doesn't drum on the album, being replaced by a drum machine courtesy of Murdoch, and Noodle is replaced with Cyborg Noodle, which then brings us to our next phase of the Gorillaz story in Phase 3, Escape to Plastic Beach. During this point in the story, I think we find out that Noodle is actually a sleeper agent, and her trigger phrase is Ocean Bacon, which sounds delicious. This fact is part of the actual reason that the Flying Windmill Island was shot down during the events of El Mañana. As for Russell's reasons for leaving, well, that was due in part to the water surrounding the island Plastic Beach containing wheat gluten, which he's allergic to. As a result, this caused him to grow to a gigantic size. He has since shrunken down to his normal size since then, but still, there. Anyway, whilst on the island, poor old 2D was locked in a bottom segment of it which sticks out of the sea, where whales circle it constantly. 2D has a fear of whales, and Murdoch is a bad person for locking him there, not to mention for making Cyborg Noodle as well. Sure, Murdoch did soon make a deal with the devil to go to hell and get Noodle back, and at the same time become immortal, if only because he replaces his organs with 2D's. There's a lot of weirdness going on. But this is the album that, whilst it didn't get me fully into the band at the time, it did give me an opportunity to explore the lore of Gorillaz a bit more, And speaking of exploring, the band does add some more pop elements, but they still remain Gorillaz at their core, experimental with emphasis on the last two syllables of that word, spelling the word mental. 2D adds some more layers to his voice, focusing more on melody in his vocals and writing more about love and peace, with only slight political tones. Slowbook Noodle makes some good riffs of Murdoch is mean on the bass as always, and the drum machine works well to add some lovely beats and sounds to the album. Yeah. Standard songs include Rhinestone Eyes on Melancholy Hill, To Binge, Superfast Jellyfish, and possibly my favourite, Empire Ants. Plastic Beach might sound a bit more mainstream, but that just adds a good level of accessibility, not to mention good production and just an overall nicer, easier to listen to sound. I can recommend this one, no problem, even though it might be considered by the diehard fans to be too mainstream. It's a good album, shut up. We then reached the band's fourth album, In the Fall, released at first in 2010, December 2010, because it's the fall, before getting a worldwide release in April 2011. The Fall is a lot different in a fair few ways. For one thing, the production crew changes, with Gorillaz being held up by Stephen Sedgwick this time round, and for another thing, Noodle returns with a cybernetic replacement now dismantled. Nobody can beat the original man. Nobody. Also, Russell still hasn't rejoined yet, which is kind of a shame, but anyway, yeah, back to the album. It's a lot more experimental, probably being the weirdest Gorillaz album yet. There's elements of folk, more electronic stuff, indie, but the most prominent is just this feeling of lo-fi. That last one is probably the most consistent on the album, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Firstly, I want to cover a couple of things. One of those things is the fact that the album is the band's shortest at 43.5 minutes long. Also, almost every song was recorded in a different state, with the only exceptions being Chi-Town and Little Pink Plastic Bags, which were both recorded in Chicago. Anyway, back to the sound. Despite the album being their shortest, it's not really fast-paced in any way. A lot of the tracks don't even hit 3 minutes in length, and a fair chunk of them are instrumental, with the last track being entirely yodeling. Yeah, that's how weird it gets. The last song in the album is just yodeling. It's very strange. Speaking of weird, there are much fewer guest stars, with only 4 this time around. Mick Jones appears on Hillbilly Man, Paul Simonon appears on Aston Forest, Bobby Womack makes a return appearance on the song Bobby and Phoenix, and the Archie McPhee yodeling pickle appears on the album's closer, Seattle Yodel. I'll give you all 3 guesses to try and figure out where the last 2 songs were recorded. One thing that I like about The Fall is that there are elements of where the songs are recorded with the lyrics kind of referencing the places they were recorded at. They're not easy to decipher, not that difficult to listen to, but with everything just sounding more pulled back and much more quiet, it's just hard to make out what 2D is going on about. One of the words that I used earlier to describe the album was consistent. Well, that's a pretty good trait this album has, to be honest. The instrumental tracks flow really well into the ones with actual words and such, and they feel more like precursors to the actual songs if anything else. It's basically something I went over in my Cell Dweller episode, which is one of my favourites, surprisingly, so yeah. That's what instrumental tracks should be done. Relatively short, good build-up, and leads to some really, really decent songs. But that's just it. The songs are decent, they're not bad, but because of the feel of the album, it's hard to tell what's going on most of the time. 2D, as I mentioned, sings really well, as always, but he feels slightly drowned out by the album's sounds. Noodle's guitar isn't bad, although it does take a bit of a backseat, as does Murdoch's bass, and the drum machine shows a good flow as it provides some good backdrops here and there, but it's nothing memorable, really. Standout songs include Revolving Doors, Amarillo, not that one, Chi-Town, Little Pink Plastic Bags, and my favourite in The Parish of Space Dust. Don't know why I did it like that. The Fall is the necessary step back that the Gorillaz needed. It's well produced, but it's difficult to decipher and hard to keep up with its short length not really benefiting the overall sound. I can still sort of recommend it, but this is a risky one. It's kind of their dark horse, in a way. And finally, we reached their 5th album, Humans, also with a Z. Released at the end of April this year, there are once again some changes to production, but there's also a change in one of the record labels, with Polyphone staying on, but Virgin being switched out for Warner Brothers Records. You know, those guys who made Space Jam, which is the best movie ever, by the way. In terms of producers, the Gorillaz themselves remain the only consistency, and this time they're joined by Fraser T. Smith, The Twilight Tone, and Remy Kabaka Jr. Also, in an interesting contrast to The Fall, there's a lot of guest stars, probably the most on any album, as there's 20 tracks on the basic version of Gorillaz, clocking in at well over just 49 minutes. And through all of those tracks, barring the interlude and intro, only the interlude songs and the intro, only one song doesn't feature any guest stars at all, and that song is Busted and Blue. Anyway, let's go into the guest stars, which is very much this episode's running joke in a way. So, yeah, let's keep you laughing, shall we? Vince Staples on Ascension, Pevin Everett on Strobe Light, Popcan on Saturn's Bars, De La Salle returning again on the track Moments, Danny Brown and Kalela on Submission, Grace Jones on Charger, Taram on Andromeda, Anthony Hamilton on Carnival, Mavis Staples and Pusha T on Let Me Out, Jamie Principle and Zebra Cats on Sex Murder Party, Callie Yukis on She's My Collar, Benjamin Clementine on Hallelujah Money, and finally Jenny Beth on the closing track, We Got the Power. Also, for those wondering about Mavis and Vince Staples, they're not related at all. I had to look up myself to make sure. I know I am as shocked as you are. Anyway, the album marks the longest period between releases at well over 6 years. Obviously, the shortest period was between Plastic Beach and The Fall, so there you go, I don't have to go over that. Don't tell me in the comments what I've done wrong, I'm aware of that. Despite this being the band's fifth album, it starts the fourth phase of the Gorillaz story. In phase 4, We Are Still Humans. The kind of echoes in the album's sound, as Damon Albarn himself said, the goal wasn't to be overly political, pardon me, but to give a more emotional, more realistic response to most of today's politics and how it's working. I presume in 2016 with Brexit and Trump being a thing back then. But some of the lyrics on the album, that's actually quite easy to tell. In fact, Damon himself said that he didn't want any references to Trump completely removed and editing them out because, like the man himself said, why give the current president of the United States any more fame? Good point there, Damon. Good point. As for the story, by this point there's not a lot to go on besides the fact that the band's new studio is a haunted house, as we discover in the video for Saturn's Bars. That's what you get for taking a bath without cleaning it first, I guess. Anyway, the album sound incorporates some more electronic rap and R&B influences, which complement the album's sound really rather well. One thing that doesn't is the album is a little bit inconsistent at times, and kind of choppy when it comes to the order of the tracks. An example is We Got the Power, which is the last track in the album. Now, I like the song, but in terms of closing out an album, it's a song that's way too short. It would have been better nearer the beginning. But that's just one small issue. What isn't an issue is the band themselves. All four are back together and it's great. It's just so great. 2D's voice reaches new depths and range, and there's some really good emphasis on his delivery and lyrics with some good keyboard work from him too. Noodle's guitar is always great, going along with the album's many changes in sound and beats. Murdoch's bass remains amazing, adding some good riffs and licks of his own, and Russell and drums fully again is just an absolute treat, hitting things hard and big with great timing. Standout songs include Hallelujah Money, Let Me Out, Bustin' in Blue, She's My Collar, and my favourite in Saturn's Bars. Humans is not without its flaws, which is somewhat coincidental when you consider the name, but it's a fun album and it keeps things fresh, it's well produced, and it's a really good return. It's damn good. I feel like I could safely recommend this one. It's good. Kind of difficult, but not, it's good. It's really good. So that's all of the albums covered so far. I have to say that my favourite was probably Demon Days. Sure, it might get a slight tinge repetitive, but it's just so much fun to listen to. It's consistent, it sounds great, and it's oddly catchy in some places, and I kind of feel like that it deserves all of its praise. My least favourite might be The Fall. Once again, there's nothing ostensibly bad about it, but it's too short, too quiet, and can get a bit too weird, even by Gorillaz standards. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the episode. Join me next time where I'll be covering Chris Jericho's band Fozzy. That's right, I'll be covering the band of Jericho. Turn it up, man! That was weird. I should never do an impression of him. Anyway, see you all then. Take care, and thank you for listening. You're awesome.